And it's not even on the agenda. I asked them if they wanted to sit down, they said no. I don't think there's maybe one or two.
That's right.
Technically zoned. Here's a DJ this morning.
I wish.
Did you see KK in the parking lot? Just making sure.
Did I say what?
Did you see KK in the parking lot?
I didn't.
Last night. You made us all
We do. Is that well?
But yours is Joey.
No, that's the first Cody Joe.
I misunderstood this whole time.
See, here's the thing, you didn't know. So Cody Joe, here's the thing. Cody Joe, well, that's a girl. Cody Joe.
So you got 3 names and then a last name?
Cody Joe's my first name, so it's really just
Like
one
all
name.
together. Cody Joe.
And Noon's my middle.
I thought it was Joe Newton. I thought it was Cody and then Joe Newton.
Cody Joe.
Like no space. Cody
No,
Joe.
yeah, it's a space.
There is a space.
Yeah, it's weird. It's space right.
I'm assuming it's J.O.E.
That's right. Well, it's funny because so if you look at my paperwork, it's like, I think like my original birth certificate's J.O., then like my social security's J.O.E. You know, 20-year-old doing all that paperwork, you know?
Yeah.
That's right.
See, but that's confusing. That's right.
Go to Joe first. Let me know. Go to Joe's. That's what I meant to be born in the South.
He gave me James on a different dad than Dax. Yeah, we always tease him that she could actually get a different dad. We always tease Jessica.
You're gonna give her a thumb?
We always tease Jessica. They might tease Jessica. It's all going on. So Emmy's.
Oh, it's funny because you and Dax are very
Emmy's birth certificate is Armando. Later did they remember, like, they messed my name up. Like, they did the paperwork, I put it out, they do it all professional, they come back.
She's sniping.
Hey.
Making fun of the pictures.
Document the whole story. That's what Barbara always does.
They had it right on the second, they had it right on the second, official birth certificate.
That's right. Let's go early. No.
Where's the minutes?
Hey Jenny, how are you? 6 o'clock, we're gonna call the meeting to order for the January 27th Planning Commission, City of Chapel Hill. Determination of the quorum, looks like we do have a quorum. First item, approval of the minutes from December 16th. Do I have a motion on the approval of the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. First item we're gonna take care of tonight is any general public comments. Anyone that's a member of the public, either an agenda item or not, will give you permission to speak, but I'm gonna ask anybody that wants to speak to state their name and their home address for our record, so that we've got it, on our notes. And I'm gonna limit you to no more than 3 minutes to talk. If there's multiple conversations about the same item, we'll listen to a couple of people and then that's it. But if anybody wants to speak, so first thing I'll do, if anyone is here to speak on an agenda item, any public comments on a general agenda item? Okay, hearing none, is there any public comments on a non-agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we will move forward with, we have 2 items for public hearing. We'll open the public hearing in regard to the parking lot design variance for Grove Hill Church located at 5439 Nashville Highway. Do we have, is the applicant here to speak? All right. Let us know what you're doing. I've looked over the plan, you submitted everything. If you can give us a general idea of what you're doing, and then we'll get comments from our engineer.
My name's Elvis Butler.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Elvis Butler.
Okay, Mr. Butler.
The variance that we're asking for is not to delete the paving from the project.
Okay.
It's to delay the application of it.
Okay.
We would like the approval to put all the curbing in, all the gravel. But be able to use that money for the cost of the asphalt in the building itself. That would give us, to be honest with you, if we could do that, we could start the building pretty quickly.
I have a question regarding your parking, Mr. Butler. So it's gonna be gravel, correct?
Will be gravel right now,
For now,
the asphalt
for now.
paving.
Right.
Is what's shown.
For the
right
next
now.
3 years.
That's what-
Where is your parking lot gonna be located? Because I noticed that there's a lot of equipment that's already backing up to my neighborhood. And the reason I'm asking is for the dust purposes.
Okay, so
Do you have any,
we're not taking down the woods if we can do this. I think the building right now is located about 650 feet from the highway. We're
so
actually,
it's closer towards the road?
right, this side, yeah. We actually are going to move that building, or look at moving the building 200 feet closer to the road. And then when we go to phase 2 that we talked about before, is the house goes away.
Okay.
And then that will be, the offices and everything will be in the phase 2 part. The roadway is designed to be, you know where the electrical line is?
Yes, sir.
Down? It's right in that area. It goes back, and then as you get up in front of the church building, you'll have parking on the left, you'll have some handicap parking on the front. And then as you go around to the south side, you've got the additional parking.
So will it be in the back of the building,
What?
your parking? Will it be
No, it'll be
between
on the sides mainly,
the north side?
north side, south side. It had to design a road to go around it to meet state fire marshal. They has to have a fire road to go around it. And they may have a few parking spaces back there, but not much. By moving it 200 feet closer to the road, and this is kind of something we want to do, we've got a prairie garden in the back.
Yes, sir.
We want to save it.
Wonderful.
So, we had thought about putting a storage building back in the woods.
Yes.
That's what you see the equipment, and we've since, decided not to do that.
So what do you, I'm sure you all have thought this through, because I've seen the plans very well laid out, by the way.
Thank you.
What is your plan in the dry months to control the dust for the neighborhood? Because you all are a large church. There's a lot of activity
You
going on.
know, if we had
with this
to rent something to sprinkle.
To moisten
we
the ground.
can do that.
That would be my only concern, because I can foresee.
We want to be good neighbors.
I'm sorry?
We want to be good neighbors.
Oh, most definitely.
That's why we don't want to disturb the buffer zone of trees
Yes, sir.
to your neighborhood.
Wonderful. That was the only question what I had, Mr. Butler, and I appreciate you clarifying.
Is there anything you got?
That can also be mitigated by the type of gravel. Half inch instead of crush and run if dust became a problem. So just for the benefit of the neighbors in the rear, how many feet approximately is your parking area gonna be from your rear lot line, from the subdivision behind you? Probably 500, 400 feet, 500
It's,
feet?
by the time we move the building 200 feet,
Okay,
it will probably be at least 400 to 500
Okay.
feet.
okay,
Cause it's over 1,000 or 1,100 feet
total,
from the street back.
yeah, your total lot.
So we'll be about 450 feet off of the road right, if we moved it 200. We've got the architect looking at that now, and we realize that by doing that, he's got to redo the grading plan. Sedimentation bases on both sides will stay, that he's got drawn.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other public comments regarding the Grove Hill Church variance request? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing for that agenda item, and we'll open the public hearing for the planning commission resolution 2025-001, amending portions of the town of Chapel Hill subdivision regulations. Do we have any public comments or questions about the subdivision regulation changes? And for the members of the planning commission, this is the stuff we've been talking about for how long, Steve? At least 5 or 6 months. So this has been it's been a work in progress. The final draft is included in our packet here. Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, relating to the subdivision regulation changes, or amendments. Okay, old business, the next agenda item is old business. Do we have any old business to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. First agenda item is consideration to approve or deny the parking lot design variance request by Grove Hill Church for property located at 5439 Nashville Highway.
Need a motion, Mr. Chair?
Need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion on the motion as seconded? Hearing none?
I've got one question.
Yes.
Would the city entertain the idea of maybe bonding that asphalt for that 4-year period? Just after 3 years, if,
I'm gonna throw that question at Todd.
Well, so in the grant, first of all, I do think, well, I know we have a motion and a second, on the floor, but the grounds for variance, it's not clear to me that that's in the record, what the basis for granting the variance would be under the zoning ordinance. I think I would suggest maybe you consider stating what the grounds for that is in the motion as it's approved. But if the vote is to grant the variance, then you can also impose conditions related to granting of that variance, whether it be requiring the church to post a bond to cover the asphalt. And then the request was for 3 years, so I think that probably should be specified in the motion as well, exactly when it's going to be required to be paved. But also, you mentioned specifically about different types of surface options that might be required. If you wanted to include that, you can certainly do that in granting the variance as a condition of that variance.
Okay.
So, again, it's y'all's motion is set, but that's just a couple of items in addition to the bond suggestion.
So then, do I need to amend the motion?
Let's
I
discuss.
think you have to-
I guess we need to discuss the grounds for the variance. I mean, the time of year is relevant. Middle of winter is not a preferable time to lay asphalt. Money is not necessarily grounds for a variance, in state of my, is that a true statement?
Right, yeah, economic need is typically not something that could uphold, the granting of a variance. So I think,
I believe the weather conditions being winter months and the possibility of the applicant posting some type of financial security and being in agreement to use some type of stone material that's not gonna be dusty until we can get the asphalt down, would all be good things to add to the motion.
Yeah, one other option, one thing that concerned me, because I do think there's some flexibility the planning commission has, because it is just a temporary variance request, it's not permanent. 3 years is kind of a long time for a temporary variance. One other potential option that could, I think, justify would be is if you said, we're gonna grant a variance for a year and review that
And then revisit.
request, and that way the town will see, okay, has that worked out okay? How is construction on the project gone, and are you still satisfied with that? Again, it's y'all's decision, but that's one thing that I think could make it, more justifiable as a temporary variance.
Sean, did you have a question?
Mr. Butler, did you have a question? Mr. Butler had a hand raised.
Yes,
I just want, we're investing $6 million.
yes, sir.
We're not running away. We own the property, we own the present lot and building that we're in. If you insist on a bond, we can, but, we're not going anywhere. And if you want us to put the rock down, that's no problem.
What do we have the ability to grant a temporary variance without a bond and not grant a CO until it gives them the ability to move forward with the project? It's a temp variance, and then, so they don't have to invest in a bond, they can use that money to go towards the building and the project, and then when we review it in a year, you know, I don't know.
Well, I, from just listening to
It
Mr. Butler.
won't be built in a year.
Or, no, not built in a year, but we'll be able to see the progress, as Todd said, in a year.
I mean, if it's the desire of the planning commission to grant a variance for a period of 1 year with the conditions as the, and revisit in a year.
And then, yeah, you
And
can.
if it's progressing the way they anticipate, the dust is being mitigated with proper gravel, and they're on schedule, then they don't have to, they don't have to.
Are you talking about a year from the time it's built?
No, what
Really?
we're discussing on a variance versus a special exception, it's typically a variance would be a physical hardship on the property, like trying to keep a building out of the floodplain or a steep slope. Finances is not typically something that is grounds for a variance. So what we're discussing, instead of granting a 3-year permission, if you will, granting a 1-year permission to move forward without asphalt and then revisit it in 1 year.
And
what
without a
Sean
bond,
was saying.
and without a bond.
Can it be 1 year from occupancy? So 1 year from now?
I think it would be 1 year from now, and what we could do in a year when we review it, if you're still not in a position, because we don't want trucks to tear up the asphalt either.
Yeah.
At that time, if the board at that time wanted y'all to put up some type of financial security in the form of a bond, it's what Sean's saying is maybe right now, grant a 1 year variance without a
You could
bond.
extend it for another year.
Exactly.
And at that time, we
Exactly.
can extend it for another year. It's
Well,
just,
the asphalt's gonna be probably the second thing from the end of the
To the
property.
last, correct, yeah.
You put your parking lot in, it won't be at first, you put enough down to park on.
That's right.
But,
So what is the requested variance time frame in terms of when that 3-year period would begin?
the 3 years would begin now, if we granted.
Well,
From start of project.
Right.
Okay.
But
I
I'll
think we're
just
looking
go
for
ahead.
occupancy of project. We
I'll go
want
ahead
that
and
time
take
to
it.
start, really, from when we got occupancy.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
That's really, I mean, we would take it, any variance, but I think we really want it upon occupancy. Cause that gives us the biggest opportunity to like save, right, and wait for summer, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir, and this is a question, I guess, for you, Todd, would a special exception be a better than better term than a variance? Or a waiver, is part of the permit, would that be better than a
I think
variance?
so. I think you basically, an agreement that the town would grant the certificate of occupancy without the paving having been completed, and at that point giving the church, whether it's a year or 3 years, complete that within that time would make more sense than granting a variance from the paving requirement for the church for.
From my understanding though, it's not, I don't think they're asking for 3 years from time of occupancy, it's 3 years from now, or
3
perhaps
years
a
from
year
now.
from
3 years from
occupancy.
now.
Exactly, so
Okay.
maybe
But if it's
what
a
we
shorter
do-
term, then it would need to be towards the.
Exactly,
occupation
towards the
date.
rear.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I think the way we protect everybody's interest is if we make a special exception now, which allows them to move forward, they don't have they have the ability to move forward with the project without a bond, which we don't need a bond now anyway, because that's on the latter part of the project. And then if they have to hold a bond, if and when they have to hold a bond, they may only have to hold a bond for a year, which would then greatly decrease their financial liability for that.
We have already talked to Marshall County Codes. They're okay with it, with the exception that we know we're gonna have to pay the handicap
Yeah.
or concrete.
Did you talk to Clint or Matt down there?
Clint.
Clint.
So. Could we take action on a special exception instead of a variance tonight?
I think you could make an appropriate motion to essentially grant them the relief to get started, knowing that the paving was gonna be deferred for whatever period of time you agreed to. But I don't think there's a legal basis to grant a variance, but again, I think you can give them the relief to
Yeah.
change for it.
I think we just touch base on it in a year.
Then would you like to restate your?
And most definitely, I would love to restate my motion. I would like to make a motion to approve the special request, granted that we mitigate the dust, we review it in 1 year. Should in the event that they are on track for that 1 year, if need be, we can extend it for another year to continue moving forward with the project so we can begin, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll still go with my second, and we'll have all the verbiage changed on our table.
Well, the verbiage will be changed in the minutes.
Right,
Yeah.
that's it. So, with the notes in the top of what was done.
Is there any other discussion or questions about this matter before we vote? Hearing none, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries for the special permission.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Agenda item number 2, under new business, consideration to approve or deny the Jonathan Gilbert, lot 1, 2, and 3, final plat of property located at 406 North Horton Park. Jonathan? I know this is, we've already seen this, a time or two. Is there anything significantly that's changed other than, I know you got the rezoning, has anything changed?
I just completed all the requests from the engineers,
Okay.
except for a couple that Donnie said that wasn't needed. So,
Okay.
I think I've done everything I've been asked to.
Okay.
We got the setback and all that stuff too.
So it looks like, Steve, did you have any other comments? So just a real quick question for Steve and Donnie. If we did get into this project, I read in the last 3 comments that it sounds like
The meters, they're moved, they're big.
the meters and the grade, if there's.
There was a couple other comments that it didn't really affect.
Didn't apply, didn't
Yeah,
apply to
it didn't
Jonathan.
apply to Jonathan.
If we did find ourselves in a situation at the build time, after the plat's done and recorded, whether you build the house or selling, if something did arise later in relation to one of those comments, would you be willing to work with whoever you sell the property to?
Oh, sure.
To mitigate or to remedy? Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Any special verbiage that needs to be on this one?
I mean, really just items, on Steve's comments, items 17 through 20. If any
What
of
about number 6?
6 is on there too, so 6, 17, or 20, if anything in the future arose relating to those items, or it's just simply been an oversight, the applicant would be willing to work with the future property owner to remedy, and the city, to remedy those.
That's number 6, number 17
Through 20.
through 20.
And you're okay with it, Jonathan?
Sounds good.
I mean, it sounds like, I saw your email, it sounds like everything's good, but just to protect the town, you know, something wasn't gonna work.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to approve moving forward with the, Gilbert project located on North Portland Parkway. Granted, under the stipulations, that should any event something arise with item 6 and then 17 through 12, that the developer will remedy and work with, the town and or the buyer of the potential property should event that he sells.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? John. Any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 on the agenda is the Carolyn Seeley Section 2 subdivision for property located at 2334 Feed Mill Road. Applicant here for this?
Yes,
And I believe we've discussed several things on this in the past, but it does look like, Steve, it looks like everything's in order on this one.
Big question, flag law.
Flag lot, I think until we vote the new regulations in, the flag lot, at the time of the plat submittal, it's my belief that it was, we could argue whether it was passed in the past or not, but we found no proof of it, so until we pass the new regs, I believe it works. This will be the last time though.
yay, okay.
Next time you can't do a flag lot, you gotta build a road.
Yes, okay, yeah, I understand.
Is there any discussion on this?
If you look on the back, items 5, 11, 12, 13, 14, I haven't had a chance to read yet. 3, 5, 11, 12, 13, and 14. I think, I know Miss Celia has been here multiple times when we've discussed with the flag lots, the drive, this, that, so forth, so on. I am satisfied that all necessary requirements have been made by Miss Seeley, and I'm comfortable with moving forward with this. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the Seeley project located on Feed Mill Road. Sir.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion and second? Hearing none, we'll vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 under new business, consideration to approve or deny, Planning Commission Resolution 2025-001, amending portions of the Town of Chapel Hill subdivision regulations. We had a public hearing on this, if you have any public comments, comments or questions about the Planning Commission. And this is the same stuff we talked about many months ago. No questions or comments? We have a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve the new updated Planning Commission Resolution 2025-001 with the subdivision regulations.
Do we have a second? Is there any discussion on this motion as second? And none, we'll vote, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. looks like we got a handful of discussion items. I'll take these one at a time, and then you'll have to help us with these items.
Okay.
First item for discussion is Ellington subdivision, that's on, Spring Creek Street, that's right, corner of Morningside and Spring
Yeah.
Creek.
Yeah, they have, in the process of resubmitting the plan, I think I sent that over to Alvin for review. I think I did. Anyway, that's, in the process as well. We've kinda gone back and forth on this on several occasions. But they've come back with a plan, it's got to be, probably resubmitted before you guys. I guess I did have a question on that. When they first initially did all this, we looked at, finally got it approved. Now that we're under the moratorium, is this something that we can even address from a plan commission standpoint?
What are they wanting to revise the plat?
They have redesigned and revised the plat somewhat. I'm trying to remember the specifics on that right off the top of my head, I forgot, but it is something on that, has to do with, I think the update on the water and sewer connections and stuff like that we had submitted from that regulation.
Have they increased the number of lots?
No.
Okay, that's, I think for the specific to the moratorium, Todd can help me with the specific to the moratorium. I don't think they should start with a brand new preliminary plat, but to amend the plat that's already been submitted, if we're not increasing the number of lots, would that
decrease?
Yeah.
Would that be permitted?
I think so, I mean, I think I wanna hedge my bet a little bit and say, well, let's see what they have submitted for review, but assuming again it's amended plat, and they're not requesting additional taps, I think probably the best strategy with their course of action would be to bring it to planning commission for review.
Now, this is where they're bringing in the dirt, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Has that,
It has not started yet, gravel's there, they got silt fence up, it has not started.
Yeah, nothing, it's not in that.
They figured a rock to get it there, figured probably no bridges and all that.
The time of day,
Yeah, is it all
That
peak
was
time?
sent to them.
we don't wanna block traffic during school hours.
So that's all still correct.
So they, yeah, right now, nothing other than.
So from the time the preliminary plat was first approved, they have been, I know the property's changed hands, but they have been progressively working toward construction plans, construction drawings. I believe that keeps the preliminary plat rolling. And under our new regs, the new preliminary plat's good for 3 years, the old regs, it was only 1. So I know they've been over the 1 year, but they've been working with the city for infrastructure, water, sewer, is that, because they're on an old approval, if they get a new preliminary plat approved, would we wanna pull that time period back so that it doesn't drag out another 3 years, or?
I wouldn't want, probably not, but
Okay.
again, I'd wanna see what they submit, see what action the planning commission takes on it, but assuming we approve an amended plat, I would say it's gonna be
Start the
valid
clock.
for 3 years, yeah.
under the new rules, correct?
Under the new rules, which are around a 3-year time period, and I think you'd be arguing if somebody is actively working toward getting to a final plat, I don't think the preliminary plat would expire unless it's just dormant. You know, it's dormant doing nothing.
So, all right, here's another question, do we wait until the moratorium is lifted, or we find out what is going on with the moratorium? Do we table it to July, or do we?
I don't think so, because they've already got a green light.
It's already been approved.
It's already been approved on the
They're
preliminary.
they're actually stepping down water taps, so it's actually in the town's favor to step down water taps.
They had a preliminary approval ahead of the moratorium, so I believe they're grandfathered in, I guess would be. the
How many
proper
were
term.
there? How many were there?
It started out at like 90 lots, and then they pulled it back to 80, 81, 78, something.
So they've already approved.
They've already decreased it one time because of, they increased the surface area and volume of their water retention and detention to satisfy concerns that the city had on the drainage along
And
Waterside Drive.
neighbors.
And neighbors, you know, there was concerns with neighbor property owners and the city ditches. So the applicant at that time sacrificed lots to go above and beyond. I think, off memory, I wanna say they over-designed by 30%. They took what we normally require and went 30% more with the amount of water they would hold back, as a good faith effort, you know, to
Will
be a
they,
good
will
neighbor.
they bring that back to us to review? Like would you do, get resubmit something?
I believe so, I believe we would look up the last approvals and see what they designed to and make sure that, you know, if they increase lot sizes and done away with retention ponds, that would be a red flag for us to stop.
Wasn't there something you thought had to come off of the side street?
There was several discussions about where they were gonna tap into the sewer, and there were discussions up front on whether it was gonna be grinder pumps or gray water or, you know, tied to manhole morning, you know, at Spring Creek Street and Morningside, there was, a lot of discussion of that, and I think that was being handled between the
Yeah, I think you got all that
applicants
worked
and
out.
And I'm pretty sure the improvements to the lift station are probably in order, it's just a matter of getting their wastewater from their development to the lift station down there, next to Chunk's property. On the Morningside.
Swanson.
Yeah, my Swanson, yeah, that's right, yeah. So I guess just report back to them.
Yeah, they'll submit it, we'll probably have them come in next planning commission meeting, so, just go on that, so.
Because of the nature of that, would it be appropriate to have a staff review ahead of the meeting to kind of head off any concerns?
Yeah.
Okay. So they may not make it to the next month
Yeah,
if they don't have a green light from.
Dang, have we got the same engineer?
Yes. It was Tim Turner, is that right?
Yeah.
T squared.
Okay.
T squared.
yes.
How's they doing?
Alright, next item I will discussion, I guess, unless you guys, anything else on that?
Anything else on Ellington, anybody know?
I had a conversation with TDOT this past week on several items, trying to just, bottom line is trying to get on their 10-year planning, strategic plan, which, between a couple phone calls and a video session, I think we've got the ball rolling on that. It's not gonna be easy, but we can certainly jump in the hopper on that. But with that being said, one of the things that, of course, they're concerned with is getting a heads up. As it was worded to me, TDOT leadership would like to know, you know, when these developments or when commercial activity takes place. And I said, guys, I mean, you know, you're the ones, you know, give the access and everything, so I mean, that's kind of where we're at on that. But they did talk about the developments and wanted to kind of get work with us on that. There is no requirement from their end for us to do that. However, they said if it empties out eventually into a main artery such as 31 or 99, they would like, in fact, to kind of, you know, be able to have a heads up on that and kind of get them involved. And they said going forward, so that's something they just started, which is interesting. But anyway, with that being said, that was one of the recommendations. I said, well, I'll pass that on to the planning commission as we start looking at these things. We can start getting more and more dialogue between us and maybe TDOT to try to figure a couple of those things out. Of course, there was no money involved when they,
Yeah.
it always comes back to that. So, but anyway, that's kind of,
Did you ask them where our traffic study was, that we had 2 years ago?
yeah, it's one of those things. where-
It's in that 10-year strategic plan, right?
Yeah. You're not on the radar yet, as they say. And I'm like,
Great.
Well, from a planning standpoint, for any major subdivision over a certain number of lots, and certainly any subdivision or commercial site plan that's done over the 99 or 31A, do we need to make that a checklist item ahead of the preliminary plat? Or ahead of submittal on a site plan for commercial?
I say, yeah, in case they turn it
I mean,
down.
Yeah, so basically they would have to get.
Not
TDOT.
necessarily have the permission, but prove that they've been in contact, you know, prove that they've had that conversation.
Plan's been submitted to TDOT.
I mean, it'll take a minute to get the permit, so I don't think we hold them up on a prelim for not having a permit, but
Right.
at least open to the conversation, cause they, the new C-store on the north end of town, jump the gun, we approved, I mean, just for information purposes, we approved the site plan, and then TDOT wanted to write in, write out, where they were showing a full-blown second entrance. Something like that possibly could have been headed off ahead of them getting to the meeting if that initial conversation would happen. So that might be something we look at on a, and I'd say on a major subdivision. What do y'all think? Irregardless of what road it's dumping out onto, anything that's over 50 lots or 100 lots is ultimately gonna impact the major thoroughfare, because people may go out to a side street, but they're gonna be heading to 31A or 99.
What was your number?
I mean,
What'd you say?
an extra 50 cars is a lot, an extra 100 cars is a lot, I don't know.
Maybe businesses too, or restaurants.
Businesses, depending on the number of people in and out. I think on commercial site plans, they would, maybe on the checklist, towards the middle, just have proof that they have been in contact with TDOT and open that conversation on developments. I don't know what the magic number is. Steve, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, you just figure like 50 lots, you know, 10 cars per car will travel, you know.
2 cars per household, you're looking at 100 extra cars per day.
Yeah, exactly.
Which half of them may go one way and half of them may go another
Yeah,
way.
trips. You go
But
with
they're,
trips.
they're still gonna be going to 31A or 99 most likely.
Yep.
In some way, form, or fashion, I guess they have to, unless they're over there and then going to 41. So, Jonathan, yes?
Y'all mind if I speak real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
The TDOT thing, so if you put, say, 80, 90 houses right in the middle of town, they do travel south. I mean, the intersection at 99 and 31 is terrible already.
And Candy Springs as
I
well.
mean, I can barely get out and take the kids to school in the morning, sometimes to cut somebody off to get out, but it seems odd that if I build something there, or if a daycare comes in there, they have to fit the bill for the entire traffic light and turning lane. When a few miles down the road, it's gonna be 90 new homes, it's affecting the traffic as well. I know there's a traffic light right there already, but if I put in, I'm not gonna do a daycare, but if I put in a business that's, and TDOT says, okay, we need a traffic light, I would have to pay 100% of that. What was it, like 800 something thousand?
It was a lot, yeah. And I'm gonna agree with you on that. I don't think that's fair, so and that's what would help us on putting a number. If a master plan development exceeds a certain number of lots, if it is gonna impact any major thoroughfare, that development may need to put some money in a pot, hypothetically, that would, that would go toward a future.
I mean, you have to determine how many miles away from the, the intersection and all that, but.
I mean, I'll pick on your intersection. I've heard, I mean, I'm sure it's probably just talk, but I've heard that a large developer may be looking at the top of the top property. Don't know if it's true or not, but I've just heard that. If that was gonna be several hundred homes or 1,000 homes, even if it went out to 270, it's still gonna impact 31A at 270.
That's all right.
In theory, that would be a scenario where a developer potentially would need to put money in a pot to co-op with somebody else down the way that will eventually, result in a traffic light.
I agree with that. We could add a facilities tax to
Specific to a major development.
to a major development to pay for, just like we do on the water and the sewer right now. We could add that additionally to it, some sort, or come up with it, or.
So development tax, okay, so then, again, we're just talking, would it be a development tax that any division of property would have to pay, or only a subdivision that exceeds a certain number of lots?
A subdivision that exceeds a
I'd
certain
say
number of
so
lots.
much per house, per lot.
Yeah, but you'd have to do per lots, because at the end of the day.
Can we
anybody-
approve Jonathan's 2 lots?
I'd be pretty special.
Hey, mine are already approved.
Yeah.
Y'all think what you gotta do now.
I think it needs to be something big, if Ms. Seasley's lots,
But to be fair.
But to be fair, you gotta break it up between everybody.
Yeah.
Because every lot or every, development is actually adding cars to downtown
So
Chapel
we
Hill.
would just
So
have a development tax.
you would have to have it just like we did
Traffic.
on the water and sewer.
So we don't, the town doesn't
can't do
have
it,
the
yeah, we can't
authority
do
to
an impact
do
fee.
an impact fee or, a adequate facilities tax
Could
without.
be a development charge.
So you can, I mean, it's clumsy and it doesn't work most of the time, but you have to rely upon the traffic studies and saying, okay, the development you're talking about, you go through and say, okay, well, we know where it's gonna go, we're gonna require a traffic study.
Okay.
And then the traffic study says, yeah, you gotta have these improvements at this intersection on 31, and then you can, hold them responsible for it because it's a direct impact to the development.
But I think
But
what-
levying a tax on all developments within the town, that the town just doesn't have the authority to do it, the
Okay.
legislature is taking that away, so. Now
So-
Marshall
so-
County can do it, but we can't.
If plat submittal fees increased, if the fee to submit a plat went up for double per lot, does the city have to justify that? or-
Yeah, so it has to be related. Now, cause I think we have made a lot of progress in trying to cover the like plan review.
The cost,
those
yes,
things,
yeah,
the cost.
yeah.
But as far as impact fees or facilities taxes, I hate to say it, but ultimately, unless you can tie it directly to
To
that
that,
development,
Okay.
then you're just left with property taxes, basically.
So the only way you could tie it to a development is if it was dumping right out on it, so.
Not necessarily, I think a traffic study.
It would show
I think
the
traffic
impact.
study would show the impact over.
Yeah,
over
conversion.
leaving here and going here.
And I think that's what T-Dot's asking to try to get a heads up on that, so he can help us now. How's this worked in the past? That's a good question, because, I mean, there's some inconsistency. I mean, at one point, it's T-Dot wants to do the traffic study and everything, but it's on the other hand, they're saying, no, we're going to ask the developer to get us the numbers and we'll review them. So, I mean, it's one of those, there's lack of consistency on that side of the fence at times, so.
So as a checklist item for a preliminary plat on a major development, open a dialogue with T-Dot. And then I think what we could do as the planning commission, we could set a number and any development with all phases combined over a certain number of lots, just require a traffic study.
Well, and Steve probably knows this better than I do, but I also think if TDOT would help with like a master plan for improvements to Nashville Highway, Horton Highway, then.
10-year study, yeah.
Well, cause then I think it would give the town more of a basis to say, okay, we know when this new development comes in, it's gonna increase traffic this much. And therefore, the cost of not just that intersection, but, all the improvements that are required as a result of that at least a part of that need to be paid by the developers.
Okay.
But you gotta have that plan in place really to make that work.
I wish we could get a hold of the 10-year plan that I was kind of involved with the TDOT at the time, that's over 10 years ago.
That's
Was talking
15
about-
years ago,
Yeah, where they were
Yeah,
talking
I
about
remember.
roundabouts, they were talking about traffic lights and stuff, and that never came through 10 years ago or better, so how do we put pressure on TDOT to actually do what they say they were going to do or do? That's where I think Danny and everybody's stuck with too, it's like, hey, they want us to get to them, but they wanna get back.
I think what we have control over is what, if a specific development is making an impact, we can, but I think the only way we can properly do that is to head off at the preliminary plat stage. Once preliminary is approved and they're waiting on final, you kinda get into a gray area on what you can require somebody to do between preliminary and final. It can be argued from either side that you're looking at it from, but that's, once preliminary plat's approved, it's, somebody can force their way in without doing what we want to do. And we experienced that with a sewer lift station, on development. On the back end, the developer figured out because of failures, bigger pumps were needed, but we approved the preliminary plat with the existing pumps. And we were stuck with the existing pumps, is that accurate? And because we had already passed the preliminary plat, we couldn't backtrack and make that a requirement on the final plat, because the preliminary plat gives them permission to move forward toward the final plat. So I think we would have to on a major development, that's something we need to look at
Well,
pretty
you-
heavily at
You
one of
keep,
these places.
you keep mentioning major development.
Pick a number.
Any development is gonna be an impact upon our town, whether it be traffic, sewer,
Well,
water,
I think,
anything.
I think a 10 lot subdivision is not gonna justify a traffic study.
Yeah.
A 20 lot subdivision probably wouldn't justify a traffic study, maybe 50.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we,
I would say 25, 2 cars per household, 50 cars, I mean, it's already town up.
Well, you have to look at the trips. You know, each house generates like 10 trips per day.
And then they're,
Okay.
average household's gonna have 2 kids, roughly.
Right.
And then in 16 years, when they start driving, so now you go from 2, and you've quadrupled. So any development's gonna have an impact. I think we ought to have that on the front, up on front. Should an event, you bring this in, this is what's gonna, and we need to really
25.
look forward. Think forward
Okay.
instead of trying to catch up on the back end.
What is TDOT's recommendations on it? Do they have a recommendation when they recommend to do a traffic study on a subdivision?
T-Dot's only gonna have an opinion when you're dumping over their road. I mean, I'm,
Yeah.
if you're not dumping directly onto 31A or 99, they're pretty much gonna rely on the city's engineer taking charge of it. I mean, they might have an opinion, but they're not gonna go on record with a requirement
Right.
if you're not requesting permission from them. I think we had a question.
Yes, sir. Just real quick, Cliff Wilson, I live on the corner. I think any impact to what you were seeing, sir, in the red, is gonna be an impact that's right from an infrastructure to water to sewage to schooling. So I mean, personally, I don't think you guys should just do it small. I think they should do stuff at the front end personally. Like if you're gonna.
What was the last part I didn't hear?
We should require them to invest in schools, in the infrastructure, in water personally, outside of just the roads. Because if you're granting developers to come in. and say-
We have a fee set in place on the water and sewer.
Right, but I still think they're gonna just, right, the developers have a lot of money to throw at stuff at the end of the day. And this nominal fee of a traffic study, they'll just pass it on and.
So I think what we're trying to discuss is, which she's gone now, but Mrs. Seeley that was just here, she had a 1 lot development, so her daughter could build a house on her property. So if we implemented the same rules for everybody, she would not have been able to afford to split off a lot to give to her daughter if we required a traffic study for 1 lot. So I think that's what we're trying to figure out is where's the, and I don't know, I was thinking 50, but, 10 trips a day times 2 cars, I didn't think about
What's
that.
the lot?
That's a lot, so I mean, 25 might make more sense, but,
Mr. Chair, you got a question?
yes, sir.
Is it possible for the city to look at it from a monetary point of view? Because like Miss Seeley, for instance, she's like 1 lot, there's not monetary, but if you're getting people that can bend rules and take a 20 or 30 plot and turn it into a bunch of 10s and skirt that, like, I think that's what the town wants, where like, I do agree with everyone should pay us, even Miss Seeley, to a degree, there is an impact by bringing them in. And so I think there is a responsibility to everyone in the town that wants to expand it, but more so like on the people making monetary investments, you go build.
What was your name?
My name's Cody Gardner. Cody Gardner.
And what was your address?
I live on Summer Station in Chapel Hill.
Okay, did you get that, Miss Ann? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
And
Yes,
what was
sir.
your name again, young man?
Cliff Wilson. Cliff Wilson,
Cliff Wilson. Your address, Mr. Wilson?
3541 Warner.
41?
3541 Warner.
Did you get that, Miss Ann? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're charged with right here is, as Todd, our city attorney, is telling us to simply implement an impact fee or facility tax as a city, as a municipality, we cannot. That's the county did that years ago. The county has a $1 a square foot facility tax charged to every single person when they buy a building permit to build a house.
Yeah.
I believe they earmarked that money for, a large portion of it goes to the Marshall County Water Department. The city, how much do you get? The city water department doesn't get it, it goes to Marshall County Water Department, and they got a cap, and once that amount per annum exceeds their cap, I believe it goes to the highway department.
They do.
So there is impact fee or facility tax is called that we pay every time we go to pull a building permit. That money is collected by the county building codes office and then given to the county water board, and the county highway department. They may give a little bit to other places, but I know the water company gets a large portion of it. But what Todd's saying is, as a city, we can request traffic studies and hold a developer for one project, you know, responsible for his impact, but it sounds like it's gonna be very difficult to have a fee that everybody pays, like Jonathan was saying, for somebody else's problem that may or may not be lawful for us to do that.
And it really is a General Assembly at the state is what has kept the city from being able to do that. Y'all may remember that 2 years ago, we
2 years ago,
tried to
we
do
tried
the
to
charter
change the
amendment.
charter.
And it got to the General Assembly and they said, no, they threw it out.
And is the city allowed to do a study and then implement those results upon all builders?
So I'll tell you the city's history with studies. We've, in the past, paid for several studies related to several different things. And when the cost to remedy those things are evaluated, we never get past the study because there's no, I mean, the only fair way to improve a pre-existing problem would be to just overtax everybody. And if you go to do that, we'll all get fired. If we go to tripling everybody's property tax.
I like 25.
But I mean, the 25 to me, that is a safe number, cause that's, and there is a way we can look at a master plan, like somebody, I think you had mentioned, somebody buying a large piece of property, doing 24 lots this year, 24 lots next year, 24 lots the year after. We can offset that by looking at the entire property, the entire scope of work. We typically do that on the.
And we already have that.
As a concept plan, we look at that. Anyway, if a developer comes in and they're showing this, but they own this, we ask them, you know, what's your plans with the rest of the property? And that's where the concept plan comes in. And sometimes a concept plan may be looking at a 15-year time frame or 20-year time frame. But the 25 makes sense to me. You got any other discussion on this TDOT? I guess we'll move forward, or Danny, pressure reducing valves, is that something Donnie you want to talk about?
And I talked to Dave, we might just need to know my specs, I just want to put it out there. I look to the future for our infrastructure when our water pressure goes up, or anything, so to have homes put a pressure reducer valve at the meter.
So, and I deal with this, and I know Sean does, Jeff does as well. Different counties do it different ways.
Correct.
Bedford County's approach is it goes right outside the water meter.
And I agree with that.
That safeguards the city on underground leak. Some people prefer for it to be in the house, cause being at the road, it can bottleneck the pressure down a little more, but the most effective way is to
If
just.
that pressure goes up, it's going up in that meter all the way.
So if you put it right outside the valve, you just lock, somebody pays for a meter, you lock it out until they put the PRV and secondary valve on.
Yeah, so, then the zone metering also is, for any subdivisions coming in, because they're cracking down on the water loss. So we have a master meter at that subdivision going in, I can calculate from our meter readings from the whole subdivision and see if we have a leak inside.
So there's a master meter
At
before
the
the water?
entrance,
Okay.
yes. Then we calculate our water loss.
Do we need to put that in our subregs?
That's.
Or is that, do we need to put that in our subdivision regulations? Or
Well, or the specs, I mean, that's where,
the water specs?
yeah.
So before somebody gets their TDEC approvals, they just,
They just need to show that master meter.
and you have to sign off, I mean, you and Steve jointly work together on that,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. So master meters, is there a magic number on master meters? Just if they're
Yeah.
extending, only if they're extending the infrastructure?
Yeah, anything off the water main with, I mean, it needs to be more than 5 houses, it needs to be up there.
But if they're laying a new water line for a new subdivision,
Yeah.
new road, whether it's 6 lots or 60.
Yeah, 15 probably be a good number. You can take that calculation and if it don't add up, kind of trace where the water leaks are.
Alright. 25 is the number on T-Box, 15 is the number on master meters. Okay. Danny, did you have anything on PRVs or, master meter or Donnie?
No, Donnie and I talked about it, I like the idea about the zone meter though, quite.
And we can just add that to our specs. So anything from today moving forward, and we don't have to vote on that, cause Donnie handles the specs, is that right?
And I guess TRB valves will just be.
Short bids.
So Amy, if, I hadn't seen this, the water specs, we need to add
Let
that.
them know about that. He'll have it, he'll get those drawn up and then it'll be approved by,
I think TDEC will have to put a change in there, revise it, we'll have to.
yeah.
But you can do that administratively, we don't have to vote. So you.
As far as I know, Todd.
On the
Water
construction
sewer
standard,
specs.
yeah, specs, yeah.
So y'all. Which we're under
I think
board
last
order
time we
right
did
now.
Right, I'm just trying to look.
Before the next major development. Alright, last item for discussion is the permitted use table.
Yeah, I sent you guys an email with that,
Is it highlighted?
yeah, the highlighted, what's, primarily in the B two, since we did recently, rezone all that. Just, you know, the board's looking at that to kind of, this gets into our strategic plan for the future. What are we gonna allow in, how many of whatever. But, the bottom line is, if you will, please start looking that over, and I would suggest that, I'll get with the board as well, but any suggestions you have, let me know, so we can kinda either look at it, bring it to the board's attention, add it, take it away, whatever, but, if you have those before you, if you will, please.
So and from a planning standpoint, Steve, you might know more about this, from a planning standpoint, does it make sense for pretty much everything on the corridor just to be B two instead of B one? Is it B two a little more inclusive than B one?
Some things are B three.
Yeah, we ran into an issue with, B three, which is the very central.
Center.
Yeah, center of town, where there was, I think it was a daycare or a nursery school.
It wasn't allowed.
It wasn't allowed under B three.
Under this permitted. See, I
Right.
thought B two allowed everything, B one allowed plus some, and then B three would allow everything, B two allowed plus some.
That's where
So that's
now-
not the case?
It's not on that. Now, look, here's the
Who wrote
thing.
these rules?
Here's
Yeah, but
where you
get
run
this,
into it.
get this.
You got a nursery school, it's not under B three, but I go here to childcare,
And it is.
it's allowed under special exception. So, that's what I'm saying, some of these things, I'm asking your help to help review and say,
So the only dilemma I'd see with a B three over a B two, just being loose with it, B three allows greatly reduced setbacks and pretty much zero lot line. And with tying in with the T-Dot plan, we need to be careful, which I know we passed a rule, nobody can go within 50 feet of the road, but I think that is relevant when, even though you're on the main road, the thoroughfare, do we really want the setbacks allowed in B three everywhere? And I think the answer is no. So it might be just amending the rules to allow some of those uses in B two.
Could, Steve, do you have any updated permitted use tables? Because I know this one was approved long ago.
Well, this was a
This goes way
state of Tennessee permitted use table when they had the, whatever the planning.
State planners?
Yeah, state planner,
Yeah.
because it predates me. It was in the zoning ordinance that was in effect.
That was in the late 90s.
2000.
Yeah, early 2000, 2001, 2000.
Yeah.
But I think that, and so one thing though to keep in mind is, and I think Chapel Hill is unusual because, as you said, a lot of zoning ordinances, if you had a more intensive use, even like industrial, everything residential, commercial, whatever, would be allowed in an industrial zone, but Chapel Hill is not like that. And we run into that several times before where a property had been rezoned to B2, but had a residential use. Well, that was no longer a permitted use. I mean, it was grandfathered in, but if somebody stopped using a house, so those are the kind of things, but I think maybe where to start is just looking at and seeing what are permitted uses in each zone. Maybe also looking at and saying, okay, well, we know we have these uses in these locations. how do we wanna change it, but a lot of times it's not as easy as change one thing, it can have like a trickle down effect unless you kinda look at the other sections, but.
So that's our homework for next month. Unless y'all wanna discuss it all tonight.
No.
No. So between now and next month's meeting, that was an email about a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was after the BOMA meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear put my email on there. I'm sorry. Don't let me forget, please.
So next month, if we, ahead of next month's meeting, if we can just look over the permitted use table. Steve, if you do have, find somebody else's that is good and clean and makes sense, just something to review, we could either just change ours or just look at a brand new set. Which I know some cities have R1 through 15, we just have R1, 2, 3, and B1, 2, 3, and M1 and M2, or just what's industrial? Just M1, I think, or there might be an M1 and M2.
Well, it might give you a updated listing or something
Yeah.
that's to consider and zone accordingly.
Okay. So we'll look at that for next month. Is there any other items for discussion?
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, Jonathan.
So what you were saying about the traffic study, 25 or more, if the traffic study says you're good, no need for turn lane or traffic light yet, but if you add 5 more down the road, they'll have to do it. I guess my point was, would you consider having a pot where they pay a portion? I think you guys might have talked about that, but I wanna make sure.
I'll defer to Todd, but so we know we can't call it an impact fee or facility tax. But
Then my
maybe-
next question would be, what about if it was a commercial business, and how would you
So,
determine?
so the tricky thing on commercial is you could have a 20,000 square foot warehouse with 3 employees.
Yeah.
Or,
I get it.
or you could have a daycare with
A lot of traffic.
150 people in and out every single day.
Yeah.
Some commercial site plans are definitely way trickier. Now, I will say something, the county, I was at a zone meeting last month in the county's changing the way they look at commercial stuff a little bit differently. If a use of a commercial property changes, they're requiring a brand new site plan in between uses. The city of Chapel Hill, to the best of my knowledge, has never required that. If somebody had, if the Dollar General at Katy closed down and somebody wanted to put a restaurant there, in the past, somebody would just bought the building, threw a kitchen in, satisfied the fire marshal, and opened a restaurant.
That was my next question. If I built a strip mall out there, and was renting it out and not knowing what.
So
was
for
coming in.
strip malls, there are formulas to use if you're doing just glass front. There's calculations per square footage, and it's like an envelope.
Yeah.
That covers almost any occupant you would put in there, and it's gonna be a little more strict.
Yeah.
Than if you just said, I'm building a warehouse for me and my 3 workers.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're doing that and just rent it out, you're safe. But if you have something that's approved as a warehouse with 3 workers, and then that closes down, and somebody wants to turn it into something with a tremendous amount of traffic, the city really needs a brand new site plan to come in to revisit traffic in, traffic out. If a restaurant has a drive-up window, that requires a little more asphalt and width than if you don't have a drive-up window. So that's, I think that's something moving forward. If we approve a site plan and then down the road, the use changes of that building, we probably need to look at revisiting site plans. It can get kind of tricky if somebody's not modifying or altering the parking lot or the rooftop.
I think what you're saying though is if a builder comes in and builds 20 and it's determined by those 20, there is not enough of an impact, and then you come in and you build 5, and they say, well, this 5 is gonna put us over the threshold, who's responsible at that point?
But he wouldn't have to have a traffic study for his 5, he would have to be doing 25 or more. So it wouldn't, it still wouldn't hurt the little man, but it is kind of unfair to the big man because the little man's not having to put money in the pocket.
Yeah. I'm looking more at the commercial stand.
Yeah.
So I think on the commercial, if you know the intended use up front, and that's all you've got it designed to, but then if the use changes, it's gonna change people in, people out, I think you'd have to revisit the site plan. If you're just doing in leased tenant space, I think there's forming, we dealt with that on the mixed use, where the guy was gonna have, over by the Dollar General in the center of town, he was gonna have 2 apartment buildings and a little office strip, and the parking requirements came up, and Steve had a general formula for a leased tenant building. It goes by the square foot, you know, for every front door you have, you gotta have 1 handicap spot, or whatever. So I think for leased tenant space, there will be a general formula that fits all, but if somebody's gonna exceed that, I think they would have to revisit with you'd have to revisit the site plan.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but what if a leased tenant space went in a half a mile from that intersection? Where they're bringing in, let's say it's a daycare, and they're bringing in 400 cars a day. Well, they're a half mile from the intersection, does that mean they don't need to do a traffic light? But if I put in, something that brings in 100 cars a day, I'm gonna have to spend 800,000 to put one in, they don't have to share part of it. See where I'm going with this?
I think from a smart growth perspective, we need to look at, we need to look at traffic.
Yeah.
Anybody that's gonna make any type of major impact, the tricky part's gonna be is how to collect money from the person that's not making a direct impact.
They do it backwards though.
They do.
The developer pays it and then they get money back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
2199 King Creek Road.
Thank you, sir.
So I think the hard part of that's gonna be finding a fair way to collect money from the little man for a future traffic light, a decel lane, or something that's not needed right now. And we've just been told we can't do it as an impact fee, or a facility tax, or even a development tax. We can't really increase plat submittal fees unless we can justify it. But maybe that's a justification. Maybe a master plan to study traffic in general is a justification to collect an extra $100 a lot. On preliminary plat, an extra $100 a lot on final plat, stick that money in the pot to study the traffic light, they'll pay for it. Is that kind of?
Yeah, it's just something to think about.
That's the tricky part, is how to.
There's been 2 developments that have already walked away because of the traffic light. I'm just trying to find a solution. And I would have already done something right there as well.
I mean, you could, if you have a less intrusive use, you could get a site plan approved, but then if you change the use, I think you'd have to revisit the site plan. You know, depending on the threshold, you know, if you're going from 3 cars a day to 100, that's a pretty major impact.
And even if I built something and wasn't required to do it, I still wouldn't mind putting money in the pot towards it. You know, 4 or 5 other businesses, you know, next thing you know, it's about paying for it.
Yeah, and I believe the planning commission, we discussed that with the daycare development. You may not have been in the meeting. We discussed potentially a co-op where, and the co-op wasn't necessarily gonna be the city paying for anything, it was just gonna be to collect the money they were offering to go toward a traffic light, even though we knew that money wasn't gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
But then if somebody did buy, say, the Todd property owns,
Yeah.
on 270, then they contribute some money to that, and by the time 3 or 4 big owners contribute money, you got the money to pay for it. It's just, anything like that can be done if the developer or applicant consents to it, but if somebody says, no, I don't want to, that's where we get into gray waters, how we force it.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, sir.
Any closing remarks? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Just a second.